Alright, so today we're doing part 2 of this set of community videos. If you're new here, a community video is where I ask you guys to send in a bunch of questions so I can answer them right here in a video. As always, if you do watch these videos somewhat regularly, I'd really appreciate if you sub to the channel, as it really helps me out. Now let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So starting things off, we've got Lord Tut Tut, and they say, with the new testing ground changes, it seems like the community divide between console and PC is only getting bigger. The two experiences are so different that many believe that they deserve separate treatment from the devs, yet Ubi has taken a stance that they will not do so. Do you think they should reconsider, or do you think they can viably continue to treat both platforms equally? So I talked about this before in a video. I believe I titled it the For Honor Dilemma or something like that. And that was of course before the testing ground changes, which, to be totally honest with you, I don't think we saw coming at all. Sure, I think we could have expected the changes to stamina one day and either a game-wide damage nerf or global health buff, but I did not expect to see them mess around with how attacks were shown, or even something small like zone attack comfort for that matter. It's pretty clear that these changes were divisive, as there were so many things changed at once and so many people had differing opinions. You could have liked one thing while not liking the other, you could have liked everything, you could have liked nothing, and on top of that, the game could have felt totally different for you than someone else, i.e. if you were playing on console on a less than optimal setup versus playing on a chunky PC. Yes, Ubi has stated that they will not do separate balancing, and I think they'll stand by that, even if that appears to be the best way to go about handling each platform on paper. This could be for a number of reasons. It could be really difficult to balance the game separately. We don't know how many hoops they have to jump through to make some of these changes, or if it's even allowed. We also don't know if it could be easy to make some of these changes. I've always assumed not, because of how many unintended things happen anyways. We also still don't know if they're doing this because they could be planning on implementing crossplay and having everyone play together after the next gen console's release, which I do believe is going to be the case, but honestly, who really knows? In a totally perfect world, I'd love to see everyone be happy with the changes. I'd love to see Ubi somehow make console a better platform to play on so that I can go back and play on it again. To answer your question quickly and not repeat everything I said in my previous videos, I don't believe they should reconsider, as I think they have genuine reasons not to, reasons that they may not be able to tell us, the players, about, and because I do strongly believe that crossplay is in this game's future, and it sort of wouldn't make sense to split up the balancing and then put them back together, if that makes any sense. And if they don't do crossplay, then I will play Orochi and Shinobi for 15 reps straight exclusively. Next up, Green Lighting says, did the spectator mode live up to your expectations? Yeah, it did. I think Ubi actually did a really good job with the spectator mode. It was a bit buggy at first, with a few things that could come off as annoying to the spectator or viewers, but now that things are all patched up, I think it's really good. It's easy to use, it displays some information, allows you to drop in or start at the beginning of a match, and allows you to view your friends at a moment's notice. It was a really good step for the more competitive side of the game, as now tournaments and whatnot can be viewed much more easily without the really boring assassin tribute at the beginning of duel and brawl tournaments, and you don't have the forced behind the back point of view anymore. You can move around the map as you please. Now, I'm looking forward to whatever Ubi has in store next for competitive, like the For Honor Dominion series, I believe it was called, which we haven't had much of an update on as we approach the end of the season, and hopefully we get an update before it ends, because I believe it will have a pretty decent turnout in terms of how many teams would decide to prepare for it and participate for its prize. Next up, John DeLiner. He says, do you think Centurion will still get his rework? I feel like the new testing grounds changes may have been the devs' way of trying to help Centurion by making all of his attacks look faster, thus making his punch land more often as well as his quick chain heavies. Yeah, I still think Centurion will receive his rework. I think the testing grounds changes were to try and help basically all the heroes and allow them to use more of their kits or get into their chains much more comfortably without the worry of being stuffed or parried for tons of damage. rather than to just help a couple of heroes, I don't think they'd scrap everything they worked on for changes that they've been admittedly working on for quite a while now. If anything, the rework and testing ground changes, if they go through, will work hand in hand and make Centurion more of a threat, but we'll just have to wait and see how that turns out. On to Red Crusader. He says, if you had a choice as to what the next hero will be, whether it be aesthetic or moveset wise, what would you like to see most? If I'm being totally honest with you, I would personally like to see another samurai hero or another Roman hero. I talked about what I want for a moveset in the last community video. I basically just said I want a hero that has a lot of options because I don't like feeling limited due to a hero's kit, and I like being able to fight in my fighting game rather than doing the same stuff over and over, even though there aren't too many heroes that can do that now. Anyways, my favorite faction is of course the samurai, and unfortunately there just aren't any heroes in the samurai faction that I really enjoy playing. I use primarily knights and vikings, and I'd like to use samurai because of their overall style and weapons. It's just that I don't find any of them enjoyable. I really want to use Orochi again because I really like him as a character and I like his finishers and whatnot, but his playstyle just isn't for me. It feels pretty boring for the most part. And the last samurai that released, Hitokiri, really didn't do it for me. Over time, I've come to appreciate Beetleberry's design, but yeah, if I had a choice, I'd love to see another samurai or another Roman hero. I don't really care for their weapon or anything like that, as long as they're a more traditional warrior with stuff to do. Elias E says, I do not understand the community's desire for a new faction, nor do I think For Honor should introduce one anytime soon or in the near future. The Wu Lin are an awesome faction, but I would argue that they have gotten the short end of the stick in terms of balance changes / attention from the community. Yorm, Hito, and BP all have received tweaks or changes several seasons / patches in a row, yet Janhu has been untouched and should be looked at extensively. The Wu Lin have great armor, unique mechanics, and slick animations, yet have the lowest pick rate of all the factions. How can the community advocate for new factions when the most recent addition to the roster barely sees any play or attention from the devs? I really like this question. I like the way you laid it out. I agree with you in that the Wu Lin are a good faction as a whole. I think that there was a lot of care put into the design of the Wu Lin, and it's hard to argue against that. They look and sound great, and over time I've come to appreciate the faction as a whole more, especially after the release of Janhu. It's no secret that the Wu Lin are generally played less than the rest of the factions, judging by the data that Yubi's given us. And I mean, that can be for a variety of reasons. It could be that there are less heroes in the faction currently, and none of the heroes' playstyles are appealing to the people who are set in their ways. It could be that players don't like the Wu Lin theme and just prefer the original premise of knights, samurai, and vikings fighting it out. I know there are Romans who aren't the exact same as knights and were introduced as DLC, but I sometimes think about whether or not the Wu Lin would have been better received if they were lumped into the samurai faction one by one, despite them being totally different from samurai. I think the desire for a new faction simply comes down to people wanting something new and seeing that Yubi did add a new faction to the game. I don't think there are too many people saying the same thing, at least from my perspective. I see people asking for tons of different factions, a Middle Eastern faction, a Persian faction, African factions, Indian factions, you name it. And obviously it's because of the unique premise of this game. The team that put this game together would probably do a great job at bringing these warriors to life and representing them positively in some way. And I think that's one of the reasons why people want to see newer factions. I'm not opposed to having a new faction. I wouldn't mind seeing a new faction actually, because at this point, I don't even really care for factions until they really mean something again other than the faction war. Maybe if it was revamped and the challenges were redone to include everyone, then sure. But at this moment, I don't really think it matters. If they were to make a faction with, say, 2 or 3 nice heroes, I wouldn't even mind it. I don't really think faction is generally how Yubi decides who they're going to update for the most part. I think a lot of us agree that Janhu should have received some love after he released, but I don't think he didn't receive work because he's a Wu Lin hero. But yeah, to answer your question shortly, I just think people always want something new, and there's nothing wrong with that. They want to see their favorite types of warriors or weapons in the game, and that's fine, regardless of whether or not we need another faction in this game. Next up, Kaito says, why do none of the girls really look or act like girls? Or appearance wise, why do they always have to be bald headed with no thickness? Only one I can say is freaking cute would be PK. Valk is a man in a woman's body. Shaman is batshit crazy. Nabushi is actually cute. But the rest, I don't know, we get skinheads and non-thick casts like Yubi, what the fuck, downgrading girls as well. I don't really know where to begin with this one. I wouldn't say that Yubi is downgrading the women in For Honor at all. At the end of the day, these fighters are fighters, they're warriors. I think Yubi has done a good job at portraying these characters as warriors. I don't think it really matters if the female cast aren't quote unquote acting like girls. You're probably thinking of having them act more feminine, or probably want more Nabushi-esque characters, when to me, it's pretty clear that Nobu was designed to be that way. I don't think every female needs to act that way. I don't really know what you expect from them. I don't know if you think the female cast should get dolled up or whatever to impress before they go out and fight for their lives. Also, I'm not really sure where you're expecting to see thick heroes out here, male or female. Sure, there's Shigoki, he's thick as fuck, but he's also just a large dude. I'm sure that these fighters who have probably been training for most of their lives, like Valkyrie, are going to be pretty muscular and in fantastic shape. Hitokiri, female raider, so on and so on, seem pretty believable to me, and I personally think Yubi did a great job there. Shaman is crazy, yes, again, it's their character. Female Black Prior fits the character, so does Yorm. PK and Nobu were unmasked, and they look that way intentionally, just like the rest of the heroes. We're never going to see any of the heroes really sexualized or looking thick in For Honor, other than Lawbringer and Centurion, of course. I don't think we're going to see Warden take off their helmet and out comes Aphrodite or anything like that anytime soon, like we see in fan art. Same way I don't think Gladiator would take their helmet off and out comes Adonis. I think there need to be a lot more customization options to get to that point, and at that point we'd have to almost strip the characters of their identities and just make them blank slates with their classes as their name. But yeah, I don't think it really matters how the character is portrayed, as long as it makes sense. If a character is made and they happen to fit your description of what a girl is supposed to be, then that's the way it is. But if not, then it's fine. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. We're still in standby as for what's going to happen next when it comes to For Honor. Hopefully we'll find out something soon, but with what's going on in the world right now, I wouldn't be surprised if things have slowed down or have been put on pause. I wanted to add a few more opinions to the unpopular opinions video, so instead I decided to release part 2 to this batch of community videos today. Anyways, I do want to know what you guys think, so be sure to talk to me down in the comments about anything we talked about in this video. And as always, if you liked the video, feel free to leave a like and sub if you're new, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.